my Mutant Rabble. Quite a bunch of characters, as you can see. So this is a unit that I've put together based on the army list in the Forgeworld Imperial Armour Siege of Vraks book series. There's 3 books in the series, and in each case there are expanded and quite detailed army lists, all out with the standard 40k army lists that you would find in the codexes in the rulebook. The reason I'm drawn to the Forgeworld Siege of Vraks stuff is there's so much going on. It's a great setting. The books themselves are excellent, and we'll take a look at 1 or 2 of them shortly. And there's just so much scope and in fact encouragement in the writing, in the text of the books, to do some kitbashing and to make your miniatures to perform as these units. There aren't actually miniatures available to fulfill the Mutant Rabble unit as it's listed, and so I've made my own. I've been building these over a while. These are ones that I've done a year or 2 or so years ago now, and what I'm going to do in this video series is expand upon it. So right now you see the 20 miniatures here, which would be the minimum size for a unit. You can take 30 or 40 miniatures, so I'm going to expand this out, probably add another 10 miniatures to get up to 30. And I think that'll make quite an imposing looking unit. What's really fun about making these is coming up with the little characters. I'm trying to stay away from being chaos, Nurgle type characters. I want them to be more, a mutant rather than a Nurgle creation. The story or the fluff behind these characters is they are probably miners working in some horrible mine shaft somewhere. They are working with hazardous materials, and over time they become mutated, and you end up with what you see here. So you've got guys that have grown larger, they've got odd-sized limbs, some of them have kept a kind of human appearance overall, but in general they have changed. And there's a common theme to the painting, keeping them the same colour of uniform as a kind of unifying colour tone, the orange and yellow. Yeah, and I think they work well together, and most of all they're fun to make and paint. I mean, it's something I would highly recommend having a go at. The miniatures are all based on Pox Walkers that Games Workshop released a number of years ago. They're great miniatures, but they're, for me, maybe a bit too cartoony, or I mean, I know they're meant to be Nurgle themed, but I wanted to cut away some of that and make them into something a little bit more that I can pass off as being a rabble of mutants. There's 1 or 2 other figures in there. There was a really good set of miniatures came out with the Kill Team Rogue Trader boxed set, which I got a hold of that, and I've converted them all, and they're in here. Those 3 larger ones at the back, you might recognise them slightly from that boxed set. That's where they came from. So the challenge overall with the unit is to end up with a bunch of unique miniatures, do some kit bashing, make use of parts from different manufacturers, bring them all together, tie them all together with the painting scheme, and grow the unit to be a bit bigger. So we'll get going, we'll take a look at the source material, we'll maybe take a look at one or two of these in closer detail, and then we will start kit bashing some miniatures, and in subsequent videos get them painted. So let's take a quick look at the source material for this unit. This is, as I said, Imperial Armour Volume 5, The Siege of Vraks, Part 1. There's 3 parts, 3 books in the series. I do recommend them, there's a lot of good reading in there. You get stuff like maps, with nice artwork on the reverse side. Great big map of the war zone area. So there's a lot of good stuff included. And there's always all the nice artwork. The miniature photography is done in a style to look quite realistic. And you tend to get lots of nice colour schemes for your vehicles that they were selling, of course, but nonetheless they're nice illustrations. But if I come forward through the book to the army lists, so here's the Renegades and Heretics army list. So in the first book, there's not much in here to do with any of those kind of, the chaos gods. There's no Khorne and Nurgle, which come in the next books. So in here they discuss collecting the army in the army list, but there's also a little passage here about the models and how to create something for this. This is effectively a variant of the Imperial Guard army list, and as such uses many of the same models. All the renegades can be represented on the tabletop using Imperial Guardsmen, as they've been equipped directly from the Imperial Guard stores on Vraks. So you could just be buying at the time the Cadian shock troops, for example, and those box sets would be enough to put these together. The best solution is to use Forgeworld's Renegade Militia conversion sets to turn standard guardsmen into heretical chaos worshippers. So I do have packets of those. They're really nice models, sadly discontinued now, but they're really nice sculpts. These conversion sets can be used for command squads, disciples, heavy weapon squads, infantry squads, and armoured fist squads. And then here it says they can also be used for the workers' rabbles. So that's how this unit starts out. In the first book they're called a workers' rabble. And then it gives you some other ideas for things you can do. So moving through to the troops section. Here's them here. So the workers' rabble, 4 points per model. So at that level I believe they're pretty much throwaway. Pretty cheap per model, and have stats to match that. But the unit composition, 20 to 40 workers, and the war gear there, las pistol and close combat weapon. So that's how I've modelled them, the ones that you've seen already in the intro. They all have a las pistol either in their hand or attached to their side, and a close combat weapon. Or in my case they've got claws or something else. And then you have the option of upgrading them. But I very much believe that what you see is what you get with these kind of model conversions. I think it's nice if they actually represent the models as listed in the army list. So I'm sticking with the las pistol and close combat weapon. So that's where they start off. And the army list carries on. There's quite a few interesting units you can get. I think the Ogren Berserkers are great. Kind of like Bane from Batman, these vials on their backs, injecting stimulants right into them. I quite like this, where even in the 41st millennium, people are using paper and in pencil to sketch the enemy. I quite like these. They're kind of presented as official documents, stamped and then sent back to Terra, no doubt. So I'm just going to zoom forward to part 3, the third book in the series, because this is when the kind of Nurgle element comes into it slightly, or quite heavily actually in the story. The second book is more about the Khorne models and the additions that Forgeworld made, whereas the third part is bringing in some of the Nurgle demons and things like that. And now the Workers' Rabble has turned to being listed as a Mutant Rabble, which is where I think there's quite a lot of opportunity for kit bashing. So the Mutant Rabble is listed here in the troop types. So here's the quick description of the Mutant Rabble. After the crash landing of the Ahurun's Bane transport, vast numbers of mutants and degenerate scum were unleashed onto Vraks' surface. Although lacking military training or equipment, these degenerate worshippers of Nurgle attack as a rampaging horde. So they're listed here as actually being brought to Vraks on a crashed spaceship. But for me, in the setting, I'm making this kind of Ash Wastes Necromunda setting, where I'm creating terrain and shantytown things and whatever. I'm seeing these guys as I said, miners working down some dangerous mine, working with toxic or unstable material. But here's the entry again, and it's just the same as before, the same stat line and things like that. So that's what we're working to, and the unit composition, you can have up to 50 of them. So I won't be making 50, but right now I've only got 20, so I'd like to just push that up a bit. And we can fit in an extra special weapon. It depends what I've got access to for kit bashing. And again, quite fun here, bringing in the plague zombie horde. Plenty of opportunity for kit bashing or using models from other manufacturers to set that up. And again, Forgeworld released some really nice kit upgrade sets for Plague Marines, the torsos for the Space Marines, and also the Terminators. There really were some great models being produced by Forgeworld at the time, like these Blight drones. I doubt they're still available now. They may be. But anyway, we'll concentrate on the Mutant Rabble for now. So I think we'll start just having a quick look at some of the miniatures that I've made there, or at least kit bashed. I think they end up working pretty well as that Mutant Rabble in terms of the way they look. The head swaps are important. I think some of the originals on those Pox Walkers and these ones, they're a bit too far gone, they're a bit too zombie-like. The good thing about doing the head swaps is you can bring in these kind of thuggish looking, more human type faces, and they tend to suit the miniature quite well. This is not a Pox Walker, this is one of those miniatures from the Kill Team Rogue Trader box set. There was 3 in there, and they make for pretty good starting points for a little kit bash. To have a few more of them here, if I can find the original. Yeah, so minus the head, you can see that there was the kind of big gash across the belly that I've removed. Keep some of the pimples and big spots and things, that's perfectly fine, but the weapon's also suitable for someone down the mine shafts there. The peg leg's fine. I did remove the little kind of face from it. I was just looking to simplify the miniatures a little bit, take away some of those extra features and then placing the kind of alien arms, those Nurgle looking things a little bit. Some of the miniatures still have some features like that, but in all the cases I try to get in some sort of pistol just so they can pass as, you know, hand weapon and las pistol for the unit. So that's the original. So it's not like dramatic changes, but it's just enough to change them and make them unique, which is a fun part of the hobby for me, I think. And that's another one of the miniatures from that box set. One of the Plague Hulks, or Nightmare Hulks, I think they were called. There was 3 of those in the box, and I'll show up a picture of the original one to the side here. So it was covered in those cartoony mouths, you know, with the teeth and tongues and whatever all over the arm and the belly and whatever else. So I've removed all those and smoothed them over, and he happens to be treated as, you know, one of the special weapons for the unit. I wouldn't propose any different rules for them. They're all just, you know, the 4-point models, all the same stats. It's just for a bit of variety in the unit to make use of them. And then a couple here just of the Pox Walker type kitbashes there. So getting in the last pistols, removing some superfluous details here and there, keeping some of them, and ending up with a couple of pretty unique miniatures. So that's the aim. So the source for this, I've already used a good number of the Pox Walkers and a few other things. I do have a few more to use which I haven't done anything with as yet. May have been because I thought these were a bit too far gone, but nonetheless I'll probably go with those and work on them. Like that one with the robot arm or replacement arm, be nice to keep that. But then the stomach there needs sorting and filling in. I like the idea of them all having these big pot bellies, you know, but not like that. Get rid of all these tentacles. So that's a few to use, and like I say, we've got these ones to make use of again, so probably leg swaps and arm swaps for those. Change weapons out. Elsewhere in the 40k miniatures, picked up a few of these, which I think are part of the Sisters of Battle range. I think with a bit of simplification, cutting away some of these bits and replacing arms, they might be a useful starting point. And then I've picked up some of these ones, which are from, I think these are from their game system, Underworld, is it? I've never owned it or tried it, but I thought I would get a few of the miniatures to see if there'd be any use. The only thing I was quite surprised at is just how thin and spindly the limbs are and all these. When you compare them to their 40k miniatures of a similar era, there's quite a difference there. Even with the Pox Walkers, they're a bit more slim, but I mean that's okay, I could probably work with that. And again, they need the head swaps. They'll kind of have this ghoulish look, zombie look to them. I think these are meant to be zombies of some sort, so I will have a look at using them. See if I can do some limb swaps or head swaps. They're almost there. I mean, you can see they could be used. It's just I want to get rid of the kind of horror aspect or the undead aspect to them. And then of course I've got, you know, various arms and weapons and things to make use of from various kits that can be added in. These are all, I think, GW parts, so there might be some Victoria miniatures components in there, some resin pieces. There's Anvil Industries, some hand weapons and things there. Yeah, that's a Victoria miniatures there. Some good pistol type weapons can be added. And some really good ready to go arms. Various kind of melee weapons and pistols there, so that's ideal. Definitely be using that. Of course, the heads themselves for doing the head swaps. These are a mixture of Anvil Industries. Some nice helmeted type ones there. And then very good ones from, I think they're listed as Max Minis. Max Mini. Which I think weren't available for a while, but I think another manufacturer's taken them on. And they produce really good heads for this use. And these kind of leering, riotous looking guys. Great expressions on them. And they fit in perfect, so I've got quite a few of those to make use of. Could maybe even have someone with a banner. You know, the guys in the mine might have some sort of union they're part of, so I could do some sort of banner for them. Might be fun to do. These ones are Victoria miniatures again. These are really well produced, nice and delicate. A lot of detail on them. You know, you can make out the fringes down the outside there. So something like that could be good to use. So yeah, plenty of options. And yeah, I mean, I don't mind producing some kind of more wacky kind of characters where the limbs have changed or mutated. I think that's a good look for the unit. And then the kind of leader of the unit here, just a resin miniature, as is, from Zinj Industries, I think this was from. Thought he was perfect. Been painted up in the same colour scheme, this orange colour scheme. He really suits it. So he'd be the kind of the leader of the unit. The gaffer. Quite like this guy. Kind of bloated. His left hand's mutated a bit there. He's got his pistol. Maybe works in the office or the lab or something. Yeah, there's one of those helmets used. Added a backpack to that one. So that's the plan. I'm going to get started probably with the existing Pox Walker ones that I've got left. I might try and have a go with these first and see how they look. So getting going with one of these Pox Walker originals. First thing I recommend is actually just making the miniature up, gluing it together. So you end up with, you know, the kind of original form. It's just with these kind of modern GW miniatures, they don't have separate arms and legs like the miniatures of old, where in a typical older plastic kit you would get, you know, your arms from the hand up to the shoulder that you can then pose as you wish. The kind of more modern stuff tends to come more elaborate than that, more complicated. And so I find it easier just to make the miniature up as intended first, and then work back from there. And possibly removing quite a lot of what's on there. But I think it's easier to do it that way, just so you're removing, say, the whole arm up to the shoulder, and you can see easier what's going to happen. It's convenient on this one. He's already got the pistol holder. It's full of stuff, but we'll be able to cut that away with the scalpel. And you'll definitely need the side cutters for this job. When you're removing large parts of a model, you don't want to be using the scalpel blade for that, because you'll end up applying too much pressure. You'll try and take off too much in one go. So it's a lot safer, more convenient, just use the side cutters for that. So on here, I'm going to start getting rid of all these spikes. And I may get rid of one or both the arms. You can see it's already making for what I think is a cleaner, simpler profile than before. I think some of these spikes are, maybe suitable for the Nurgle theme that the miniatures have. And I think for the demo and this as well, I'll just do a head swap on it also. So it can look quite drastic what you're doing, but in the end it'll make for a better result. Now I'm going to want to have a pistol being held probably in that left hand. So I'm just going to remove what's there already. And then on the back there's all these kind of Nurgle type things. I'm going to try and smooth away some of that. And then when you've done the bulk of the cutting work, then you can come in and with, now I'm just using really light strokes now with the blade just to remove some of these extra details. I'm not applying any pressure, so I'm not going to hurt myself. I think that's the key. You don't want to be applying lots of pressure when you're using these things. Little kind of short motions as well, just to try and smooth it over. And don't be using blunt scalpel blades either. It's no use, because the more blunt the blade is, the more pressure you end up applying trying to make a cut. So you're just kind of like whittling down the bits you don't want to be there. And then to do some smoothing, you can just come across with the side of the blade. It's sometimes useful to use the reverse side of the blade. They can have a kind of useful smoothing or scraping action. And this is your chance to get rid of the mold lines also. And these guys shouldn't have blemish-free skin, but I'm just going to smooth them out a bit and get rid of some of that extra details. Really do recommend those Imperial Armour books, the old Forgeworld books. I imagine you can't buy them anymore from the store, but probably on eBay you can pick them up as people try and move them on. The Infelion Project one is really good. That's the one with the Tyrannids. It's got a really good horror theme to it, the story throughout. And it's only the one book, the one volume. Unlike the Siege of Vraks, which is 3 big books on that one. It's very good and created an amazing range of miniatures as well. So I've got quite a good collection now of those Imperial Armour books. Lots of good ideas in them for creating your own miniatures and scenarios to work to, terrain to build, and lots of a nice artwork through them as well. So if you've got some spare shelf space, I would recommend grabbing a couple. I think they've covered all the factions. There was the orcs are covered, and then the Tau is a good one on that. The Talon Desert Raiders, I think, a really strong era of Games Workshop creativity then in miniature design. Things don't need to be absolutely perfect for this. You know, they can be grungy when you get around to painting. There's different ways and different styles of doing them. And the good thing about 40k at least is there's some really good effective and relatively easy techniques you can use to paint these things, including the contrast paints, which have made things a lot easier for people now. But I'm thinking more of the washes, oil washes and enamel washes on top of simple base colours can create some really nice effects. And these guys really suit the board, the terrain that I'm making, the kind of ash wastes, Mad Max theming that I'm doing. These guys fit perfectly in a kind of fodder unit, really good for the setting. Sounds horrible to say, but I'm trying to remove all these little maggot parts of the sculpt, which I think are very much a Nurgle theme, and I'm trying to eliminate that if I can. They're always going to look a little bit like they're leaning towards that, but I see them more as being used, you know, as a kind of fodder unit. But if they make it through their battle, I see them basically going back to work the next day, back down into the mine shafts to carry on mining the hazardous material, whatever they're doing down there. Okay, so that's going in the right direction. You can see I've been able to make a bit of a difference, and with a bit more smoothing here and there, try and spot anything I want to take away. Should be getting there. Sometimes useful also having one of these pin vise type drills. Something else I've been using to smooth out any rough areas or parts where some artifacts left from using the scalpel is a little bit of the Tamiya extra thin. That can just help get rid of some of those little kind of surface defects or whatever. Just gotta make sure you don't put your finger into it after you've applied it. Make sure it's properly dry. But it'll just go in there and smooth off any little rough areas. Used sparingly, of course. I mean, I wouldn't recommend coating the model with glue, and it would have to be the thin stuff like this. Like I said, I'm not trying to get rid of every little surface detail. It's nice to have a bit of texture here and there. So what I think I'll do now is select one of these heads to use. I think I'll make use of one of these nice Max Mini ones, just to get the character to start looking like something. Kind of needs a head on there to look right. Pretty much ready to go. Maybe just need to remove a little bit of the neck, and of course it will be super glue for sticking resin onto plastic. Okay, so that's the head on. I'll let that properly dry, and then we can maybe look at slightly improving the blend between the shoulders and neck and the head. For that, probably use this liquid green stuff, just because it's convenient and, you know, in a pot ready to go. It does tend to shrink away when it dries, but you know, you can apply it 2 or 3 times to build up the layers. And then, just for the purposes of making the video, I think I'm going to switch out the weapon there. Got some of these hand weapons by Anvil Industries. They do these handy sprues for kitbashing. So we've got one here with a hand and a chain from the right hand. I can swap over there. And then I think for the left arm, rather than just adding a hand, I think I'm going to take a whole arm from one of these Victoria miniature sprues. It's a nice left arm there with the pistol. Now we want to make the cut on the model roughly where that shoulder comes in with the new arm. And the angle of that cut does matter. It's probably best to take less off than more. You can always take a bit more off. Yeah, that's not bad. You can have them kind of looking in the direction of the pistol. And then for the right hand, okay, pretty close to the actual hand itself. If you make a neat cut, you can keep, you know, the weapon in hand for a different kitbash. I notice I'm not pinning any of these things. I'm not drilling holes into them and adding wires or whatever. You could look to do things like that if you want to make stronger connections, because none of these connections, unless they're plastic to plastic, are going to be quite as strong as the originals. And then just to make it a bit easier to work with now, get them glued onto a base. Okay, there we go. So that is pretty basic kitbash, or at least so far. We'll do some more work to it, but you can see the effect and how quick that is to produce. From transforming a, you know, Pox Walker type miniature into something maybe a bit more human, but at least a mutant of some sort, starting to change, be warped by the hazardous substances they work with in the mines where they probably spend most of their lives. You can see the faces there, really good sculpts. So you've got a few different manufacturers there all together on one miniature. When I open this stuff up, usually needs a bit of a mix, or even needs some water added. Don't want too much, it's not meant to be like paint. It needs to be reasonably thick. In terms of applying it, you can pretty much use anything you want. And I've found it's just a case of putting it on and letting it dry, knowing that it will shrink away. Maybe just try and get some around the neck. And I'm expecting to probably do a couple of passes, 2 or 3 passes. Okay, that'll do it for the green stuff. Don't want to spend too long on what is a very simple kitbashed model. Really easy to do, but when you've got a unit of them to put together, You don't really need to be spending huge amounts of time on them, but that's about as simple as I'll go, head swap, arm swap, weapon swap, that kind of thing. And then we've tidied up the rest of the body, removing some of that Pox Walker feel. So that's it for this video. I think that's going to be long enough anyway. If I do more of these videos, I'll probably move on to doing slightly more complicated builds. I've got one here. I'm going to try and incorporate this upper torso from a Nurgle kit, another Nurgle kit, one of the Age of Sigmar type kits, and some other bits and pieces, do full leg swaps and see how that works. But yeah, we've got 10 to do in total, so I'll maybe generate those videos, and then I'll do the painting video when I've got all 10 built. Just a bit more efficient that way. So until then, thanks very much for watching.